Let's see if we can try and decipher what INEOS' plan was in this stage, because if there is one, it's not working out very well so far at this Vuelta a España. Stage 9, from Puerto-Lumbreras to Alto de Velefique, 190 kilometers long, not much climbing at the start of the stage, a 30k climb in the middle before 13k's at 7% to finish, with Movistar with Alejandro Valverde crashing out, be able to attack Jumbo-Visma and Roglic and put them under pressure with Lopez and Mas. In terms of the fight for the break, we weren't able to see anything. The live images hadn't started yet. Photos later showed Tarame trying to get in the break, Perduen, his teammate Caruso eventually did get in the break, whilst Jumbo-Visma obviously were just monitoring who was trying to get in that move. Eventually, a large group of climbers did go with Caruso, Bardet, Kenny Elissonde, Rafael Majka, and with about 74k's to go, Damiano Caruso had heard that INEOS were pacing behind. Bardet's trying to get food and water at the worst time, whilst Caruso begins his move, because he doesn't want to get caught by INEOS pacing on this long climb, and he thinks if he can get into the valley, maybe the break still has a chance to win. No one comes back to Damiano Caruso on this climb. Goes solo in the heat on Alto Collado, and Bardet, Majka and Tuschfeld are not able to come back to him. Meanwhile, INEOS had started to pace on that climb behind with Tom Pidcock, Puccio, Dylan van Baarle and Pavel Sivakov, and according to Roglic afterwards, they made the pace quite hard on that climb, although there was a long section to recover after that climb before the mountaintop finish. Caruso crests at first, 90 seconds ahead of his breakaway compatriots, gets onto the descent, and this is where Caruso builds out his advantage. 2:18 with 50k's to go. Bouchard for Agile Desert Citroën, who didn't get in the move, actually is able to bridge across to the remnants of the break, which were only 30 seconds ahead of the peloton, and everyone starts gaining. Because Jumbo-Visma don't care. There's no one threatening in the break. They start to slow pace with Sam Ullman and Koen Bowman. And so Caruso's advantage goes from 3 minutes, 3:40, 4 minutes. Suddenly, at the base of the final climb, with a 2:22 advantage on the guys chasing, he would have a 5-minute advantage, which would be more than enough for a man of his caliber, even in the hot conditions. And so the question was, what would happen in the GC group? Taka back to them. INEOS pacing again with Pavel Sivakov in the blue KOM jersey. And all of a sudden, a good day for Bahrain up the road, but bad behind, with Mikel Landa getting dropped very early, 9.7k's to go. I know the free Landa movement took steam in the last couple of years. Time to imprison Landa for Jack Haig or Damiano Caruso. He loses 4 minutes on this stage, not having the shape of the Giro earlier this year. So the question was, what would INEOS try and set up with the pacing of Dylan van Baarle and Pavel Sivakov? They're probably over 10k's to go at this point, because the breakaway is at 8.7, and Adam Yates goes for his patented early attack, marked by Miguel Angel Lopez easily. And there's a few things wrong with this image. First of all, Sepp Kuss is marking them. They don't care if Sepp Kuss goes with them. Secondly, Kuss goes completely over his limit, like he did at UAE Tour following, or attacking even, Adam Yates and Tadej Pogačar, and then more relevantly, following an Adam Yates early attack on a similar length and difficulty climb at stage 3, Catalunya, and eventually he got dropped and would lose a lot of time on this stage. Today he went over his limit again, and this is no tactical advantage for Roglic, who is even pacing behind, and Bernal's at the front almost thinking about pacing behind. So I'm not really sure why Kuss was marking Yates and Miguel Angel Lopez. In fact, you see Stefan Kruijswijk, he's having to pace behind, trying to chase that group back. So it's not even like Roglic could sit in. And so the rest of that group was able to sit in on this climb. It had Gino Mader and Jack Haig for Bahrain victorious, Mankey sitting in before Roglic, after Kruijswijk finished his work, bridged across a 50-meter gap in 20 meters. Enric Mas loses his wheel cleverly, didn't want to go over his limit, and he realized probably when Roglic would get back to the Yates group, they would slow down anyway, which was the case. And it's Egan Bernal pacing back Roglic with Carapaz on his wheel, which is the wrong way around. So all of this is backwards for INEOS on this climb. It should be Carapaz attacking instead of Yates, and it should be probably Bernal almost pacing back, or probably Yates pacing Bernal. It doesn't really matter which one if Roglic went up the road ahead of them, but Bernal pacing Carapaz and Yates attacking in a pretty risky move first, doesn't make much sense to me. Roglic closes it easily, and they sit up. And so the pace comes out of this again. Caruso is able to hold that gap, and all the other GC contenders come back without having to spike their watts as much as Bernal, like Haig, Gino Mader, and co. So Lopez looking in good form, Mas looking threatening as well. By the way, Caruso's up the road. We'll finish with him. I feel sorry for Damiano Caruso, actually, to do a 70-kilometer solo win, his second Grand Tour stage win, I think, and of the year, to win, and is almost overshadowed by the GC action behind. An incredible win for him. He's almost back in the GC picture. He's gained so much time back on GC. But back behind him, 5Ks to go, Adam Yates gets the moto draft of his life in this attack, which Kuss also tried to mark, and Miguel Angel Lopez bridges across with Roglic and Mas on the wheel. Roglic wasn't looking too good. Carapaz drops hard, loses 9 minutes. And Mas, sensing weakness with Adam Yates, who's just attacked 2 times, really long-range hard digs, puts it into him and drops Adam Yates. And now behind, he wasn't really pacing too much. Miguel Angel Lopez is able to sit in. Adam Yates has to pace Jack Haig and Egan Bernal. And the question is, should Mas work with Primoz Roglic? And the answer for me is a clear yes. Yes, Mas is second on GC. Okay, well, you want to win the Vuelta, you got to take time on Roglic somewhere. Well, he's not going to drop Roglic, and they're not that far from the finish, as well as Roglic was working with Enric Mas, and so if you don't work with Roglic, he'll probably stop working, then INEOS come back, and then you gain nothing from an advantageous position where Mas is putting real time into Adam Yates and Egan Bernal and every other GC contender like Haig, who's now back into 4th on GC. So Roglic was happy to work with him. He's also gaining time on all the other GC contenders, including Miguel Angel Lopez. And it was actually Jack Haig who countered off Adam Yates' pace to drop Egan Bernal, who's maybe a podium threat really to him. And Bernal didn't look in great shape in this last kilometer. Head bowed, seemed to go over the limit following the Roglic moves. And Enric Mas was tapping out a very, very solid pace at the end of this stage. Movistar are looking really good. 2 genuine GC threats. Mas and Lopez, who are looking like 2 of the 3 or 4 best climbers in this race. Roglic obviously has the punch and the TT advantage on them. Will they be able to gang up on him in later stages? Hopefully for the spectacle of the race, whilst Haig beat Lopez and Yates in the sprint to 4th. But a huge stage win for Damiano Caruso, finishing 1 minute and 5 ahead of Roglic. Mas, who then take about 36 seconds on Haig, Lopez and Adam Yates. Gino Mader, after actually doing good work for Haig, finishes in 7th on 2:07, 3 seconds ahead of Ciccone and Bernal. So a bit of a shake-up in the GC, actually. Roglic 28 seconds ahead of Mas, Lopez on 1:21, Movistar 2:3. Haig jumps up to 4th after getting time in the break the other day on 1:42, 10 seconds ahead of Egan Bernal. Adam Yates is 15 seconds behind Bernal, and I think there's rightly a lot of questions to be asked of INEOS strategy in this first week. Trying in the crosswinds, great stuff, love it. Pacing with Narvaez on a perfect climb for Roglic, putting your own teammates over the limit, not great the other day. Attacking with Yates today, putting him over the limit when really Yates would have been able to stay with Enric Mas and the Roglic group, I have no doubt, if he'd been able to ride more conservatively. And Carapaz wasn't really helping close gaps for any of them on the climb either. So something I'm going to mull over tonight and think about on the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast rest day recap. Tomorrow we'll have a rider interview on there as well, so make sure you check that out. Let me know in the comments down below, is there any topic you'd want me to flesh out from the first week in a video tomorrow? Until then, ciao.